It's a really hard thing to do, and I know we've talked about it in the past. When I spoke, one of my first speaking engagements was for Forbes, and I didn't know I wasn't going to be able to even see my slide notes or anything, and I was out on the stage with the lights in my face, and you can't even rely on the fact that your notes and your slides are even going to be readable or seeable in some of these situations.
That's a very good statement, because I remember I was on a CNN show and I didn't know what to expect. They called me down, they sent the car, and there I was in a black, pitch dark room. There was one little tiny camera and it was time delayed. So I have the ISB in my ear and I am talking to who knows who, somebody in Atlanta actually, and I had to wait because the time delay was so upsetting, and I'm listening to them in real time, but when my time came to speak up and respond, it was almost impossible to
Uncomfortable. I had something similar where I had to speak over hearing myself say the same thing in a delay, and you're trying to talk, but you hear yourself the whole time while you're talking, but just that's impossible. I actually, in New York, when I went back for a different thing, they had the setup where it was in a building that was kind of like a WeWorks type of thing, where everybody's all working together in these, and they used one of these rooms to videotape because their studio was under repair. So they've set up like this mock green screen thing, and we're in New York, and there's like sirens going by, and they go, "We're gonna film that part again," and there's always gonna be things you may have had the best take of your life, but that siren just did it for you, and you got to do it all over again, right?
It happened, especially in Manhattan. That has happened so often. And here we are when I'm doing television, certainly in the media capital of the world, New York, or it was anyway, until the pandemic came. But when I'm doing something in a soundproof studio and we can still hear the sirens.
Oh, you still can?
And yes, and the director has to say, cut, and then we have to do a whole new segment, because sometimes you do hear the sirens. They are so loud, and the soundproofing is not as good as it ought to be, et cetera, et cetera. This is what we started off saying. You can never tell what's going to happen. And that's what makes it exciting for me, but it's not so exciting for you. I know you need more structure. And
it's hard for when you're the host, it's a little bit different than if you're the guest.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? True. And so, like in New York, I've had very few siren things happen, because one was that really bad situation I just mentioned. Most of them were soundproof, but I've had it where they rented like Airbnb lofts and things to do it like a realistic kind of recordings in New York, and they kind of wanted some of that. It was kind of fun, actually. I like that a lot. But when you're the host, and for me, my radio show, I do out of my home office, which is a whole nother ball game when your neighbors decide to jackhammer across the street.
Well, wow. I was living in my condo in New York, and upstairs they decided to replace their carpeting. And the banging and the bang. I had a camera crew coming to film me for some news station, and I said, guys, could you please, I will pay the people who are laying the carpet to please wait 1 hour. That's all I need, 1 hour, please. And that's how we did it. But you're begging people, because sometimes you can't do things in the most perfect studios. But
that's why you call out the elephant in the room, I think, sometimes. You know what I mean? When you're on stage and you bomb and you go, "Hey, thanks to the one guy in the back for laughing," kind of thing. It's like it's like that.
Well, that's being real. That's not the olden days where people thought that you say one word and your hand goes like this in concert with that one word. It's not like that. How many times I have had my MBA students for my communications courses would get up just as they were taught in the undergraduate world, and some of the graduate students, graduate classes that they had taken. They were under the impression that they just got up and stood behind the the lectern,
Mm-hmm.
and they're, white knuckles and
Yeah.
all, and they're just speaking or reading. No, no, no. And I
Yeah.
remember one class in particular, I had them all grade one another.
Yeah.
Oh, they were so nice to each other.
Yeah, they are.
And they had to put them on 3x5 little index cards. And then I collected the cards and I read the what they had to say, read it out loud. And I said, this is not what I saw. How come you're so nice to each other? Your audience is not going to be that nice to you. They're going to tell it like it is.
Yeah.
I took the cards and I ripped them up. And I said, yeah, threw them in the garbage. And I said, now we're going to start again with reality.
Ah.
Oh my good. Did that make an impression on them? This one guy told me years later that he had to take stress tabs before my classes. He was such a nervous wreck. That was really funny, but I didn't know I was so scary.
You are scary, Dr. Gilda. That would have scared me if I was in college, probably in the day. Now I'm like, yeah. But
wait a minute. These were MBA students.
Oh yeah, my graduate students. Right, right.
It was
much different. Very different. Yeah.
Yeah, and they thought that they would just be so nice.
But it's different now. You know what they're doing? Since I mean, I still teach a lot of MBA classes, and I still teach all of these students. And now a lot of them are doing them through Zoom, and they're uploading them to YouTube, and they're doing. And as I started yesterday, and they're like very boring and monotone, and no, and you're getting the whole thing because they're thinking they're just recording into a recorder, and they're not thinking that this is a presentation that if you were in front of a group. And a lot of them in my HR classes, they're trying to get a job and they're like, yeah, I'm great at this because, and they're just like so boring. And I'm thinking,
those are
you got to have some enthusiasm,
Diane, those are the people that we have to capture here to let them know, that will not fly. I have gotten jobs online before Zoom was even popular.
Yeah.
I was getting jobs to do regular, full-time television shows.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one Hollywood person interviewed me for a new reality show, and she said, oh my goodness, this is great. You look so great. Not that I had anything good to say.
It doesn't matter what you said.
But once again, the 7% of the impact you make is only words. It's only the words that you say that count that little minuscule amount. Mm-hmm. But I got the job, and then I refused the job because I didn't like the terms. So, but people were starting to do that more and more. Look, for the bottom line, we know business is in business to make money, to show a profit. If they're going to take me when I was in New York and fly me to the West Coast, that's big bucks for them. Don't you think it's so much less expensive to see how I interact here? But if I'm interacting like this, do you think anybody is going to be interested?
That's a really interesting thing because I wanted to, you brought up something that when I was in pharmaceutical sales years ago, for years we did the regular interviews. You'd have somebody come in and you do face-to-face after doing phone screening, the usual process.
Right.
And then 1 year later, they started to send out film crews to different areas to do in-person videos. So the actual manager or HR professional or anybody associated with the company other than the cameraman or woman, they weren't there. It was just the camera person, right? Uh-huh. So there was just a question next to the camera and you had to stare at it. I didn't have to do this because I was already in the company, but I sent some really great salespeople as applicants, to sign up. And then when they got in that setting and they're looking at this camera, all of their enthusiasm, all their normal ability that they had with people, some of the best people didn't make it through that interview process, which is where we kind of are again today.
That's exactly right, because this is a skill. And everybody thinks, oh, yeah, I can communicate. Sure, I communicate with my mother every day on the phone. So that's communication. You really have to differentiate yourself from what has been in the past and what you learned in the past to now. One of the things that I did with my graduate students was I said, "You're not standing behind the lectern." What? What? I said, wait a minute. I need to
Please.
the white knuckles. I said, "No, forget about the lectern. I want you to stand in front of the audience, full frontal." And they said, "Well, oh no, oh no." And that was very scary because so many people do use that lectern to hide behind. And
Or
it's just,
pass out on. I've seen that. Some people.
I haven't seen anyone pass out, but everybody understand this.
Uh-huh.
That is a barrier. That's just
It is.
another barrier.
Well, thinking of barriers, as you say that, not everybody turns on their camera. Right now, you and I both put our camera on. And a lot of people, when you're communicating in the work setting, don't want to get ready, or they're just doing something, their dog's running around behind them, their kids or whatever, they just have their name or their picture, on the screen.
Yes. Yes.
So you're basically talking at the camera, because you're not even if you decide to look at like Gilda, if I was looking at your eyes right now, if you were just a picture, I'd be just looking at your pictures. All of your animation would be not there.
Let's talk about that. Okay, let's talk about that because,
Yeah.
of course, we've all seen that on Zoom.
Yeah.
You don't feel like getting made up or your hair prettied up or anything. So, of course, you're going to just leave your photograph on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you are as effective with a photograph as you will be on face-to-face?
Of course not. But sometimes people are going to do it. And I'm saying, as my side, I won't do it, let's say, but say you decided to do it and I can't get you to turn yours on. I have to talk at your picture. And
yes.
So it makes it harder for me to know how to communicate to you. It's just like looking at the green dot, might as well. So you're back to like my interviewing example with pharmaceutical sales, where you're talking to the camera. So you have to learn that green dot in your mind, you have to picture the person. Otherwise, you're just recording like my students might do, these monotone things, because you forget it's a person that's watching you. And that's tough for a lot of people.
When I'm on television, there are usually 2 or 3 cameras. And I ask them, which is the camera that's going to be on us?
Yeah.
And sometimes they shoot one person.
And they move. Yeah.
They do move. And how many times people, the producers will say, or the director will say, no, you just look at the person who's interviewing you.
Right.
And of course I know that.
Yeah.
But I have my own style where I may be talking to you and then I turn to the audience because we know that we're being
right. I don't like to look at one thing only if I'm on television either. I think it makes it very boring to just look at my profile staring at the guy or girl interviewing.
Well, but for me, and it depends upon how comfortable everybody feels in doing this. For me, I'll be talking to you, Diane, and then I'll turn to the camera and turn to the audience and say,
that's what I do.
Look, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And then I'm going to turn back.
Right.
This is very intentional and measured. So because I'm on somebody else's show, if I'm being interviewed,
right,
I have to respect their guidelines, of course. But this is just my style that I've incorporated for so many years.
I think when you say that, I think there's different times also. When the host is looking at the camera and saying something, I think it helps to look at the camera at that time too, like they're introducing things. And if you're staring at the host, it looks weird. You need to be kind of looking where they're looking. And then when they say goodbye and we're wrapping things up, I think it also helps to look in the camera because they're looking at the camera. What do you think?
It depends upon the dialogue and the relationship that you are establishing and that you have already established in only 3 minutes.
Yeah. That big relationship.
Suddenly you have a big relationship. Right. But it really depends upon what's happening at that time. And I look back and people question, so how did you get to this point or that point? And, it's over the years, I have incorporated stuff that works for me very well. And I established these little behaviors while I was working on live television. You can't make much of a mistake if you're on live television talking to the audience. But
Right.
it's far more captivating if you are talking to the audience. But if you have a host who's just talking and talking with you, you may not have an opportunity
That's true.
to talk to the audience. So it really depends upon how you're doing. And that's another thing that you have to be thinking of while you're delivering your important
Tapping and
points.
rubbing at this. Yeah, we're back to that again.
And we will always be back to that because you have to have your wits about you.
Yeah.
And I love the biggest compliment when somebody says to me, "Oh, I saw you on television the other day. You know, I could do that. That's so easy. I could." Okay, then that means that I made it
look easy.
so easy.
Yeah.
Good.
Not that easy.
It's not that easy. Not that easy.
Nope, not
Okay,
at all.
we have to go now for this segment. We'll see you back soon, everybody.
Bye.